We can start. So, well, let me. Okay, so I don't have the reflection on my from my glasses. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. Much is Much, no?
It's Much.
Okay, sorry. Much Untertrifaller, one of the principal of Dietrich Untertrifaller office, and we are discussing about how the office is growing, is getting stronger and better, and I was very impressed to see that the office was born in Vorarlberg, has offices in Bregenz, in Kiel, in St. Gallen, in Switzerland, in Paris, and in Munich. So it's a network of offices, more than 130 people working together. And I'm sure that in the last year, your office has been growing, facing a change in time, no? Because it's the practice of architecture has been changing so heavily. And so I would say that let's start from this point of view. How I mean, coming from your personal experience or from the experience of your office, how can you tell us how the practice of being an architect has been changing so much, and which are the most important challenges which generated shift in your work organization in the office?
Well, it was a very, I would say, slow ongoing process. So we, at the same time, we constantly grew, that our office got bigger and we got more and more different locations. Also the kind of work and the working circumstances changed slowly. So if I look back 20 years, it's today it's really completely different than back then. That has to do with all the circumstances with the building scene, industry, with authorities and clients. All of that, of course, changed too. The technical support changed. The beginning, the working in BIM and all that stuff, of course, changed a lot, almost as much as 30 years ago, the starting of the CAD.
Okay. And this, in a way, also was influencing the way you design the office, but also your way of working with architecture. Because I mean, it's even the practice of doing a project is changing. No, I mean, it's let's say the argument of sustainability, for example, enter massively in the vision. But not only. I mean, even the idea of working on different kind of public spaces, of designing spaces for new communities. I mean, the world is producing new kind of questions in relation to a change in time, and this is also entering your way of working, no?
Yeah, I mean, I must admit that for us, actually, the contents didn't change that much because we already worked 30 years ago, sustainable with timber, passive houses, in Vorarlberg back then, all that. But you're right that everywhere else it changed the last years, and all the topics that I knew from the beginning just from Vorarlberg are now actually everywhere, and everybody wants to follow that these directions.
You're right. I remember when 2 decades ago I discovered, let's say, Vorarlberg, which was a kind of very interesting regional laboratory for architecture. And I would say that we should know more about what happened in Vorarlberg, because it's like other small regional area in Europe. It was a place where, let's say, good architecture, good communities, good clients, public and private, and technology applied, generated a very interesting diffuse laboratory. Can you explain us, because we're not from Vorarlberg, so much of people doesn't know about that. Could you explain why Vorarlberg was so for topic in this moment in relation to this interesting evolution?
Yeah, I would say it was back then a lucky coincidence of a lot of different aspects. On one hand, there always was expertise in building in timber there from centuries on, and when the generation before me and my generation came back from their studies abroad, back to Vorarlberg, there was back then a small scene that was created by architects, young, innovative clients too, but also craftsmen that were very innovative, and that brought us, I would say, on a discussion on eye level very far. So we tried to lift up the quality of things in the discussion together, and that was really special back then. It still is, but it that helped a lot. And one thing that helped too was that back then there were no rules for young architects to be in the Chamber of Architects.
Okay.
So everybody started right from the beginning as an own architect, and as Vorarlberg is quite a rich area of Austria, there was enough work around for everybody.
Well, it's the perfect wave, I would say, no? Because it's a good economy, a new generation of architects, possibilities to build a region which was wealthy and open and ready.
Yeah. I think it was the right place, the right people, and the right time. So that's lucky, but still you have to make something out of it.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you, because it's lucky is never enough. But and in that moment, the idea of working sustainable and with a different way of rethinking timber in construction was also very interesting, because I know that like many regions along the Alps, timber is the natural material, let's say. But what we could say that in the last 30 years, two generations at least of architects has been working back to timber, not in a tradition, not using only traditional craftsmanship, but rethinking the use of timber.
Yeah, I think that, this really changed a lot. The techniques of building in timber changed also in Vorarlberg a lot. When we started, there was no idea about large prefabricated pieces. That started quite soon, but not at the beginning. So it was more or less a traditional thing of building in timber, but with contemporary design.
Yeah.
But a lot of the new techniques in timber were also invented the last 30 years in Vorarlberg, and then found their distribution elsewhere. So actually, we were always on the head of the movement, which of course helped us also to develop our expertise. And
well, this is I think central. The fact that let's say the technique allowed you to work with traditional material as it was let's say modern material, no? So using span which were not allowed at the moment, using possibilities of intervention that at the moment were only be able only for steel and concrete, and now can you tell us more, because one of the key arguments of our discussion is about innovation, no? And so I'm very much interested to focus on that. Which were the strongly innovative shift, no, in relation to timber construction, and how it was possible. Probably it was a pushing from architecture and from companies to have something different and more performative in terms of uses. But I'm very interested about the way industry face the problem and the way industry work with you to find different solutions.
Yeah, I think that, before it was like beams and single pieces that you fix together. Then when it changed to slabs, I think that was when it came up to do multi-story timber buildings, and that was so much easier with slabs, CLT slabs, for example. So this was at the beginning when we started building up like 4 or 5 story buildings in timber. That helped a lot. Before it was, if we had large prefabricated pieces, it was kind of boxes. But the boxes were larger and not as easy to build with. So the invention of the CLT elements was a big step forward. But still, I mean, there are all kinds of techniques are still there. It depends on the project. It depends on the spans, so on. So there is a lot of different aspects to follow.
And timber, let's say, industry was working together. I mean, facing these let's say emerging issues of sustainability and energy waste, because it's this is also those are related too.
Yeah, I mean, of course, also for the enterprises, for the companies, it was a matter of their own growing. So, for example, the small carpenters that we started with in the 80s and beginning of the 90s now are quite big companies and deliver throughout whole Europe. So they also had to find new possibilities to produce, pre-produce, prefabricate buildings of a larger size, and how to handle that in logistics and on site. So all that stuff made it necessary for all players in the game to develop.
I was looking through the materials. I mean, the production of your office. It's very interesting. As usual, you start with the small houses, and then the scale is growing, and now you are facing big urban projects. And I was very impressed by the fact that you invested a lot in school projects, because I was going through the project you did in France, in Austria, in Germany, different colleges and gymnasium and new building for the school, where you applied the timber construction, let's say. But to me, also it's very interesting to see how you have been working on the idea of school architecture for community architecture. So how did you evolve the work on doing schools for the future? Because this one will be probably in the next decades one of the field of investments, because in Italy, for example, it's very strong. I know that in Germany they invested a lot, in England and France too. So there's a lot of discussion about this argument, and you did a set of very, very interesting projects. I was very impressed by the quality of the project. Very different of the scale and different of the situation, but I would like you to express your philosophy in relation to the community buildings and how did you develop, also through example, if you like.
Yeah, well, when that topic, the educational buildings, was very important for us from the beginning. Of course, we started with small projects, mainly kindergartens in the beginning, and ended up all the way up to universities. As the one in Munich, we just finished the first phase last week for the technical university, the TUM, which is absolutely an increase in scale. That's a 140 million project in timber. But we think, and we always thought that these buildings are very important for the society, because it's our children that visit these buildings and spend a lot of their time in there. So the atmosphere and the impulses they got in these buildings, we think that is very important. I mean, of course, it's not just possible in timber, but timber transports the easiest a certain warm and friendly and cozy atmosphere that especially small children need. And we also got the experience within the decades that we frequently visit all our old projects too. So some of them are 25 years old now, and all of them look like at the first stage just the timber got a little bit darker, but they are completely without any damage. There's what you can see often in schools, that everything is destroyed or drawn on or scratched. None of this happens in these buildings, and this brings me to the idea that maybe it doesn't, maybe it does matter what is your surrounding about, and what trust a building gives in his users to be used properly and appropriate.
Yeah.
So this still is for us a thriving idea, and also the handling and the use of the natural light is very important in buildings like that, and the natural light plays really nice with the timber surfaces. So it's and what I must say makes it easier to do these buildings in timber than maybe other buildings is that most of the school buildings you can have quite a rigid structure to develop the concept of the whole body of the building. So you have a lot of repeats in the axis, and all of this is of advantage if you build in timber.
Well, the way you applied modularity and the kind of rational, very open and rational scheme helps a lot in managing also the progress of the building. And I agree with you that a school which ages well, it's a perfect example, no? Because it's you do a school for the generations, not only for the today. And so the fact that buildings ages properly, I think it's a fantastic example how good architecture should age with us. No? And from this point of view, it's clear that timber architecture has a very strong point. I mean, it's but also I agree with you on the fact that if people feel good in a place, they take care of it. They care the building, and so vandalism is less evident, and the people feel part of it. You know, feel part of a school, which is also a house, which is a community place, and this is also very, very, very interesting. And I was wondering because the school, for example, in Italy, there's a very interesting discussion on the fact that the school can't be only a school today. No? It's also a civic place, a place that has a 24 hours life. This is something that is also going to happen in the project we are doing.
Yeah, also this changed a lot because like 20 years ago, the school programs were really rigid and there was almost no freedom to do any additional spaces or communicative areas because it was just the minimum size of the classroom and the minimum hallway that connected the spaces. And that makes building for education also interesting the last years because everything is changing. Children spend more time within the school, not just in the morning, but also in the afternoon. And at night, as you said, school buildings are used by whatever clubs or like the gym and also the classrooms for other lessons. So schools get more and more open buildings, not closed monofunctional areas, and this, of course, is important that you can develop new spatial schemes that are also give more impulses as a poor program. Yeah, so you can practice a lot of different kinds of learning, not just the front teaching in front of a drawing board. You can work in smaller groups and different places, and so there's a lot more a dynamic in the teaching process. And what makes it interesting is that these movements are pretty much different everywhere. So it's a difference if you do a school in Austria or in Germany, and even a bigger difference if you do it in France, for example, because in France, a school building till now is still a closed building for everybody else. So they don't have multi-usage. They still are closed. It's not allowed for anybody else to enter the buildings. So there you need some tricks to get similar results because they still have the rigid program classroom hallway. So
Okay.
you just have freedom if you, for example, let the hallways grow to the 3 or 4 times the size, and then you get more or less these communicative spaces for free without neglecting the program.
That's very frustrating, because it's to me the 21st century is getting out of the boxes of monofunctional of the 20th century, which is one of the arguments. No, I mean we are there's a kind of fluidification in terms of usage, which is part of our daily life. So and every architecture we design too rigid is not surviving this time. To me, I mean, this is my personal point of view. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think of course a building also should have the flexibility and the robustness to give the opportunity to change within the times. So if you follow just a strict program that is meant for a special situation at a certain time, then you're way not enough flexible. So it is necessary to think beyond and anticipate future developments, of course. Yeah.
Which is one of the role of good architecture, no?
Sure.
Never today.
My opinion is anyway that intelligent programming gets more and more important. Absolutely. It's not just a nice building necessary, but also an intelligent content, and
which is very much in the philosophy of your work now, because I mean it seems that you are very much inside the idea that architecture is a kind of clever machine that you need to deal with a changing reality more than a formal product of something.
Yeah, I think it's necessary to enable changes over the time.
So before we were talking about the tomb in Munich, I was very impressed by the importance and the complexity of this project. Can you tell us more about this project? Because it's an ongoing project. Just the first phase has finished, and even the first phase is huge. So can you tell us about this project that you're probably following since you are in Munich?
Yeah, it's really a really challenging project, and we were really happy to win that competition 5 years back. On one hand, it's of course the site is wonderful. It's within the protected gardens of the 72 Olympics. Wow. With all these wonderful neighbors, the Benisch Frei Otto Stadium, the BMW building by Schwanzer, and all these wonderful monuments from the 70s, 60s. And actually on that site was a building from the 72 Olympics too. Actually quite a nice building. Unfortunately, it was done in curtain steel, so it's completely destroyed. It's even dangerous to use it, and so they had to find a new possibility to practice sports. It's one of the largest sports complexes in Germany, the most important for the Olympic teams. For us it was a challenge, because we had to find a way that the existing halls still can stay in function 100% till the new ones are finished. So it was a quite difficult logistics topic to solve that. And we came up with a very simple scheme with 4 quarters that we realized 2 quarters diagonal, and that meant that we could save all the old halls for the moment. And now that we started this week in the new ones, we can destroy the old ones and add in their location the new university institutes, because the complex doesn't just house the sports, but also 6 sports medicine institutes, a library, auditoriums, large cafeteria, stuff like that. So at the end, it will be a large campus for a lot of thousands of students.
Wow, very exciting, and probably it's one of the largest projects you are doing in your office.
Actually, it's one of our two very large ones. The other one is the Festival House in Bregenz on the lake.
Okay.
But the tomb is also very large, and I think at the moment I'm not wrong that it is the largest, or at least one of the largest timber buildings in Europe at the moment.
But which were the challenges to use timber for such a wide span? I mean, it's
well, we had two main ideas. An interior street that connects all the halls was, I would say, the main element in the design, and the large canopy that covers the track and field stadium, which was in the competition, more than 25 meters of canopy in timber, of course. Now we ended up with 20 meters, but not because of structural reasons, just because of budget. Because a roof as large as this, of course, even if there is no square meter of usage, it costs a lot of money. But I would say that's the main element of the design is this 160 meter long, 20 meter canopy over the terrace of the cafeteria, and as I said, it covers the track and field, the 100-meter track, because we had the idea in the competition, like in the Formula One, the box street, that we cover that area where they rest, because it is a medicine place too. There are a lot of laboratories where the sports people are directly controlled after stopping, so that helps a lot if that is protected by the rain or the sun. But actually that was the idea, but of course it dominates the whole space, because around the building is a 20-hectare space of outdoor sports facilities too. And from everywhere where you are in that, I always call it a green chamber, because it's surrounded by a listed dam of the landscape architect Cimek from the 70s. It's one of the only post-war landscape designs I know that are listed as a national monument.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and from everywhere where you are in that space, you have a view towards that canopy. So it's more or less the identity of the whole place.
Sure, it's a kind of a shadow, no? It's a strong element in a way. And I was thinking about looking at the project that you're right. It's such a relevant and sensitive area where, from the beginning, from the 70s, landscape and architecture and innovation were the basics, no, of the. I mean, the Fai Otto Olympic Stadium is still today one of the masterpieces of European architecture. And at that time, if you imagine, it was an amazing challenge, no, from the technical point of view. And it was coming from organic thinking, no? So now it's interesting because you don't have to be organic anymore, but being organic means designing something which is breathing with the context around, no? So it's a kind of a new step in terms of innovation and sustainable architecture.
Yeah, I would say it. I mean, it's also possible the other way around, still organic forms. But I mean, to be honest, our main idea was also not to have to compete with these fantastic free forms, but more or less give an answer that, I mean, we always had the image of an aircraft carrier that we dock to these green dams, and that is floating in the landscape, and more as a part of the landscape, also with the green roof and the fifth facade on top, than an outstanding monument by itself. These are everywhere around, so it's not possible to compete with them with a building like this.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
But still, it's not a matter of forms, how you integrate in a landscape and how you integrate with the materiality and how the expression of the building expresses the sustainability and all the aspects, the openings of the building for the light. For us, it was the right answer to these other neighbors.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And so, I mean, this project, as the other one you were telling me, it's part of a let's say on the large scale project, which means that you are moving from, let's say, the design of single building to the design of landscape and city. No? So how do you? I mean, what does it mean for you as an architect, the change in scale? Do you feel it? I mean, it's because not all the architects are easy on different scales, no?
Yeah, actually, what makes maybe our office special is that we started with that second large-scale project very early in our career. So the design of the Bregenz Festival House is from '92, and we are now building the fourth phase of it.
Wow.
So it accompanied us our whole career, and what also maybe is special for a large office as we are, that we still do very small scale projects, houses, furniture exhibitions, apartments. So all the time we had a mixture of very small and very large projects running. It's just more now, of course.
Sure. Oh, which is good. I mean, it's I think that the jump of scale fits the vision, no? So you don't become rigid only in doing only one thing, but you feel, as we said, from the spoon to the city, no? You continually work on a circular vision. And I was seeing that you have a long experience and a long tradition in terms of housing building, from a single house, which was at the beginning for Alberg, these beautiful wooden small houses, till big complex. Well, in the last 2 years, it's impossible not to say we had pandemia, so a lot of things has changed. Even for example, I see in Italy in the design of housing, no? Because let's say the issue of security, the issue of open air, some new issues are entering in the way we are designing houses today. So did you feel it's something that entered in your agenda in terms of design process or not? Because this is very interesting to understand.
Well, actually, I mean, developing new projects is quite a slow process. So that's, of course, just in the recent projects, it's something that you consider too. It's hard to tell if you can consider different stuff, because on one side we are discussing if the housing should change, that it's easier possible to work at home, to have enough space, or to have a free space that you still can go out even if you're not allowed to go out. On the other hand, also the working spaces should change, that maybe not as many people at the same time will change their working space back and forth from work to home and back, stuff like that. And some jobs maybe even don't need anymore a fixed working space, but a better space elsewhere. So I think that will find its way in the programs of buildings of housing and office space buildings. But actually, I think we are not really there, because we all mainly work on projects that were done before the programming.
It's too early, it's true, but I'm sure that some of those issues will enter in the discussion in the next future, because
for sure.
What we lived in the last 2 years, I mean, I'm talking about the Italian experience, but this has been lived everywhere in the world, is that we learn to live differently, no? So on one way, we can't go back. On the other, the house probably became one of the core of a different way of living and working and doing many things together. Also sharing, not only as an individual group, but also in sharing people, sharing services. So I think this would be very interesting to see the next years how the market will change and how the people will demanding in different spaces for their living.
Yeah, I think it's also not just the spaces we are in that we have to think about, but also the spaces in between and transportation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think we have to mention. I mean, for us, that it's a topic that interests us more and more the last years, not just to think about buildings or objects, but also the surrounding and the distance between them. What is a city? What is a village? Back to my to the programming, how to program a city, not just a building. How we can live in a city, and I think architects and architecture can deliver a lot of answers to this, more than most people think about or expect. But I think that the hollow space in between the buildings should get more attention.
Well, it's what was called in the 70s the space in between, no? Which is, well, I agree with you. What we call it emptiness is a treasure to define the new way of living and to the new ways of using the city and sharing potentials. I completely agree with you. And probably aging the city, but also aging the population, this will also be an argument in the next decades, no? Because we are always talking about climate changes, but we always forget that the European population is aging more than other parts of the world, and this will affect somehow our way of imagining and designing the cities.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of social changings throughout the world, different ones in different areas, but it's something, I would say it's about the same crisis as the climate crisis, is how we deal with the generations, or with the poor and the rich, all these topics. So it's way not enough just to focus on the climate crisis. You also have it's always dangerous to think one-dimensional or monofunctional. Things are so much melting into each other that makes it so difficult to find proper solutions for which aspect ever.
And coming from this premise, which is very important, and this is my last question, which are the most interesting and challenging projects you are carrying on in this moment, which are on your table, let's say, that you can tell us about?
Well, besides the Munich project, which will still occupy us because the second phase starts now, it's still the festival house in Bregenz, because a large opera house like this with so many different venues is always interesting to do. But also a lot of other projects. Social housing for me is a very important topic, and there's also changing in that going on, like in the school buildings. So that's really challenging, and introducing timber also in social housing, but also the spatial aspects of the social housing, the places you meet, the common spaces. So I couldn't focus on one project. It's what I like most is the diversity of the projects we have, and the different scales we have. So you're always in some project in the beginning, and other projects at the end. So it's always going one into each other, and that's, for me personally, it's important to stay awake and don't lose fun on work.
Having fun in architecture is the basics. This is such a hard work, and we are dealing with such huge complexity so at least we have fun. And this is fundamental. With the fun we can close. I think it's perfect. So thank you so much for Much, and
thank you, Luca,
for generating this nice conversation. And I'm looking forward to see the next steps of Munich and Bregenz. So it will be very exciting to see how they will develop in the next future.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation, Luca.
It was my pleasure.
And whenever you want to have a guided tour in one of the buildings, feel free to
I'm sure that soon I will come to Munich, because Munich is still one of the places where I should like to go and see a lot of things that I'm missing the last year. So I will come and visit you in Munich soon.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
So have a nice evening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.